A Guard's Request, read by Ash Hester. Testimony, year 3674. I stand before you today, guilty. It was my duty to watch over the children of Alamantra, and for millennia I did just that. I watched as kingdoms flourished and armies rose. I watched as famine spread and lives were lost. I saw generations pass and species perish, until, one day, I could watch no longer. I interfered with the lives of mortals. I betrayed my sacred oaths. Was I right to do so? Should I be condemned? I suppose that's for you to decide. Prologue. Twilight. The moon peered over a cloudy sky, catching patchy shadows. 4 hooded figures silently snaked their way through a maze of dry flower beds to the centre of dark gardens. Each wore long cloaks in dark colours, as is tradition for such clandestine encounters, as the wind stilled and animals fell quiet. As an outsider looking in, would you have missed the 4 figures cloaked in sinister shadows? Perhaps you would have noticed, but paid them no mind. Maybe you'd rather not get involved, nor would I blame you. If you had noticed, would you have noticed one figure wore a finer, more elegant garb than the rest? That they held their head high as the others fawned over them? Perhaps, like me, curiosity would get the better of you, and you would narrow your scope to decipher their hushed tones. No mortal ears could hear as they held up their glowing hands, chanting as they cast their wards between the wooden posts. "Sisters, what news have you?" asked the one in the elegant garb, the silken fabric wrapped around her black as shadows. "We've secured 3 of the shrine locations. However, the spirits inside remain inactive," replied one dressed in a plain cloak, hers being a greyish colour. "Frey is proving problematic. However, I believe we found the shrine of Pudron and sent scouts to try the entrance," added a second, softer voice in a navy cloak. "The spirits haven't awoken for us before," scolded the first. "Why should Ignoros be any different?" "Perhaps we'll have more luck with Alder Frey," offered the soft-spoken one. "You're kidding yourself. The spirits have no reason to show themselves. We're going to have to do this by force," burst the third, her tone eager. "Let's blast the entrance with all we've got." There was a rumble of disagreement from the first 2 as they jumped to refute her suggestion. "You may have something there," agreed the elegant one. Although she kept her voice low, it was strong, seductive, and full of intent, the weight of her words causing the 3 underlings to turn. "I do? She does?" The brazen one was almost as shocked by the realization as her comrades were. The 3 held their collective breaths, eagerly awaiting their marching orders. "You're right. They have no reason to show themselves. They have been sleeping far too long," she hissed, malice growing in her whispered tones. "Perhaps it's time we give them a reason." Knowing how it would all end? If I could go back, would I stop this meeting? No. This quiet encounter was but a catalyst, a single step on my path to disgrace, and my downfall, nonetheless. That same night, in the kingdom of Sudra, King Drazar whiled away his day, stressing over the labours of ruling, praying his luck would change. Sudra was a desert land with hot summers, scorched sands, and starving citizens. with slate-coloured skin, forked tails and short, pointed horns rising above their temples. You'd be forgiven for thinking the Sudra looked like demons, but this was considered their lesser form. Legends of their power warned others away, leaving their kingdom at peace. However, the whole kingdom had a secret every Sudra knew, yet none would repeat nor whisper. They were losing their powers. It was dark out when Queen Nimiti entered their bedroom to find Drazar sleeping at his desk. He still held a quill in hand, his head tilted back, leaving his mouth ajar as he slumped against the chair. The satin sheen of her nightdress draped behind her as she crossed to meet him. She ran her hands under Drazar's cream cotton smock and onto his muscular chest. He slowly came around, opening azure eyes to admire his queen. Nimiti cocked her head, her ebony lips parting into a smile. The ruby of her eyes sparkled as bright as the many golden hoops and bracelets she was adorned in, each glowing against her dark skin with radiant charm. She held herself with confidence, not arrogance, for it was justified. Straight raven hair slipping over her shoulders as she bent to meet him. There were myriad stories told across Alamantra of Queen Nimiti, emissary of the desert. She was known throughout the lands for the kindness of her bountiful heart and the mercilessness of her calculating mind, named, quite justly, the Demon Queen of Sudra. Nimiti was a temple, enduring, stoic and strong, a temple whose beautiful facade disguised an unforgiving labyrinth within, one wrought with twisted corridors only the bravest of warriors dared enter. "You work too hard, my king," she cooed. Her voice was like honey being whispered into his ear. A soft glow came over her hands as she activated her arts, holding him close. Over the years, Nimiti found some incredibly inventive ways to use her arts, but de-stressing her paramour was perhaps the most important thing she used them for since becoming queen. Recent years had not been good to their kingdom. Famine was an imminent threat, but she found purpose in doing her duty, and helped Drazar any way she could. After all, they were her people too. "The burden of wearing a crown is far greater than the weight it holds, my queen." Drazar turned to her lovingly, but still wrinkled his brow. "Then it's fortuitous we're going to have to trade yours for crops if this drought continues." Nimiti lifted the crown from his head. "Let's hope it doesn't come to that." The king gave a hearty chuckle, pulling Nimiti down to sit on his knee. He wrapped her into a tight embrace. "Don't worry, I'm sure something will come up," she assured with a kiss, her dainty hands warm against his cheek. "Come, let's get you to bed." Nimiti took his hand in hers, leading him across the room. With each step, her charm swept up his arm, swirling over his chest as he sank to the foot of the four-poster bed. Nimiti shuffled over the mattress to kneel behind him. The soft glow of her arts heated his skin as she massaged his broad shoulders, relaxing his muscles. The Sudran king loved his queen from the moment they first met. Drazar attributed everything he was and everything he could ever be to her. She was all he could wish for and more. He often wondered if even love was enough to quantify all that he felt for the goddess that was she. Nimiti ran her hands into his umber hair, working her way over his skull and around his horns. Her nimble fingers combed back down to his neck and along his spine, her arts ever flowing into him. It was intoxicating. "You really are tense, my king." "I just don't know what to do." Drazar released a mighty sigh, Rubbing his temple with his fingers, he sank forward to rest his elbow on his knee. Either we fight a war we cannot win, or we surrender to the Duran Empire. No matter what I do, our kingdom, our secret is at risk. There's always a third option, Nimity corrected, coming around to straddle his knee. Nimity pushed Drazar back to lay on the bed, a single fang catching in the light. She drew in close, his heart pounding as she placed her hands on his chest, leaning in. A shiver held Drazar to attention. There was no highlight kit. Just the thought of it made his pulse thump, a resounding bass line to the symphony rising within him. A fanfare beat within his stomach as Nimity drew closer, opening her mouth before his. Our secret may be our greatest weakness, but it is also our greatest strength, she whispered, his lip quivering in response. The anticipation was too much to bear. Then Nimity inhaled. Energy rushed to leave his body in an explosion of endorphins. His senses rumbled into a roaring crescendo. His whole body burned, alive and alert. A moment of pure euphoria held in perfect equilibrium. Drazar couldn't help but smile. Of course his queen knew what to do. Their secret had indeed kept them safe all this time. But over the last year, Jura expanded its reach over its northern borders and was fast gaining strength. It was only a matter of time before the Empire turned their attention west and came for them. And Sudra was in no position to be fighting anyone, least of all the Empire. Drazar was released and everything slowed, the world vanishing around them as he saw only her. He imagined this was how the great rocks of the desert perceived the shifting dunes, held in time as the world around them drummed on. Still perched over him, Nimity kissed Drazar's lips before working down his neck and along his chest. Drazar sank deeper into the bed, his body gaining weight with every touch. His vision fuzzy, his chest heaved and his skin glowed as she made her way down towards his navel. You are the greatest king Sudra has ever seen. You are strong. You're brave. There's no way this Duran fool could ever compete with you, she purred, looking up to him, her fingers curling over the top of his trousers. Her lips stretched into a sinister smile. Perhaps what the Emperor doesn't know really will kill him. Her words sent shivers down his spine, resonating deep within as his senses slowly returned to normal. Drazar welcomed the embrace of Nimity's ebony lips, relaxing as a surge of euphoria rushed through him. He allowed it to engulf him, body and soul, as he lost himself to the waving pattern of the painted ceiling. His body warm and clammy, his head light and sweaty, his toes curled. She was right. He was strong. He was brave. More importantly, he knew what he had to do.